Thanks for joining us this afternoon. My name is Haley Paul, and I'm the Outreach and Communications Associate with Mid-Atlantic TAP. Today we'll be presenting on DC opportunities through Brownfield Redevelopment, as is stated by the title. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. So just going through the people that you'll be hearing from today, myself, of course, getting us started. In just a moment, Carrie will start introducing the content of the webinar, and then later on, we will hear from Seth Cardwell and KBC. But yeah, without further ado, we can go ahead and pass things over to Carrie.
Thanks, Haley, and welcome everyone. We have a small group today, which is great. So hopefully we can have some conversation. But as we get started, I invite you to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know who you're with, what kind of work you're doing, and your name, of course. And feel free to drop questions in the chat at any point or to raise your hand. I do not mind being interrupted at all. My name is Carrie Staten. I am the director of Mid-Atlantic TAB, which is a collaboration of programs from across Region 3, including all of our states. Region 3 at EPA covers Delaware, DC, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia. And we'll talk a little bit more about what TAB is and how we can help you with your redevelopment priorities wherever you are. But our partners are Western University. That's where we are. We're the lead for TAB. We are all from the Brownfields Assistance Center, which has been providing technical assistance on brownfields in West Virginia since 2006, and has been the EPA TAB provider for Region 3 since 2021. We also partner with the Virginia Tech Community Design Assistance Center, which does technical assistance and design assistance on projects in rural Virginia, and has been doing that for a long time, and now does it in partnership with TAB, as well as the University of Delaware Biden School of Public Policy and Administration, that has a lot of great grant writing support that they've been doing, a lot of good expertise in design as well as public administration and planning. And then our sister Brownfields Assistance Center at Marshall University that has also been providing technical assistance since 2006. So that's our team. On the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit more about that. So the Technical Assistance to Brownfields program is an EPA-funded program. It's available all over the United States. It provides technical assistance to communities and stakeholders on anything related to brownfields and to help people better understand brownfields and how to redevelop and clean them up. As I said, it's available across the country. EPA is divided into 10 regions. Every region has a dedicated TAB provider, and we are the Region 3 or Mid-Atlantic provider. While we are funded by EPA through a grant, we are independent from EPA. We're not EPA employees, and we provide support and guidance to help everything, like I said, on brownfields, including how to acquire them while protecting yourself from liability, assessing them, cleaning them up, and turning them into something productive. We also focus our work, on health impacts of brownfield sites, ways that technology and science can be used for all of those steps along the way, and how to comply with local voluntary cleanup requirements that are usually run through a state or sometimes a city. Next. So what is a brownfield? The EPA defines a brownfield as a real property, the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse of which may be complicated by the presence or potential presence of hazardous substances, pollutants, or contaminants. So what does that mean? It means any property that you know is contaminated or may have been contaminated, if you have reason to suspect it's been contaminated, and that is stopping it from being redeveloped. So this is a pretty broad definition. It can cover a wide range of things. Things we traditionally think of as brownfields are factories, glass factories, old industrial sites, gas stations, dry cleaners. But it can also include places where there might be asbestos, like old abandoned schools, commercial buildings, or lead-based paint. Historic structures might have lead-based paint. That could also be make it considered a brownfield. And then also, while not in DC, in other areas, things like formerly mined land are explicitly included in the definition of brownfields. Next slide. So environmental contamination can be intimidating. To be a brownfield, it's typically understood or expected that perception of environmental contamination is what's holding up redevelopment. But we're here to help you and to tell you that you don't have to be afraid. So there may also be opportunities that exist at brownfields once you know where they are, where they're located, what might be there, and what resources are available to help clean them up. And the reason for that is that there are these resources that are available, but also if you think about where industrial properties are located, or where these old formerly used properties are located, they tend to be in places that already have infrastructure. So if there was a factory there needed to be transportation to get whatever they were making in that factory out to where they were going to sell it, or to get the materials in order to make it. There would have needed to be all of your traditional water, sewer, power, etc. And so you're starting ahead of the game, as opposed to developing on pristine or green land that doesn't have any of that. So there may be opportunities. A lot of times they're centrally located, so that makes them easier to get to if you want to put a business there, and more appealing to the folks you want to attract, both to develop and to visit that site. So there are some upsides that can outweigh the things that might be scary at first.
All right, and we're gonna switch to me now. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Seth Cardwell. I'm the Community Development Associate on the team. So now that we've told you what a brownfield is and not to be afraid of brownfields, we're going to talk about some of the opportunities of redeveloping brownfield sites. So when you look at redeveloping brownfield sites, they can improve adjacent property values. They can result in increased economic growth, including jobs and taxes, by linking economic vitality with environmental benefits. So not only are you creating a new business and a new hub there in that location, but you are also cleaning up and removing or limiting the contamination that is on that site. As Carrie mentioned on the previous slide, they often involve the use of existing infrastructure and the reduced expansion of impervious surfaces such as asphalt. That results in a reduced risk of urban sprawl and a reduced risk of things like flash flooding, especially in urban areas. They can turn health and safety liabilities for your community into community assets, and they can enhance economic development and tax base and create new and local jobs in those centrally located areas. When we talk about the economic benefits of redeveloping brownfields, on some research nationwide, the EPA has found that reusing former brownfield sites has led to $29 to $97 million in additional tax revenue. It has resulted in a 73 to 80% decrease in impervious surfaces and a 25 to 33% decrease in work-related vehicle miles traveled. Those seeking to address brownfield sites can realize greater economic benefits by working with partners to leverage those funding opportunities, and that is where Mid-Atlantic Tab and our network of folks can help. And as of 2021, $20.13 was leveraged on average for each EPA brownfields dollar. So, Mid-Atlantic Tab, we're here to help. So we're going to go over an array of things and services that we provide to communities free of cost. We're going to start with community engagement, namely because that is a crucial step in the brownfields redevelopment process that is kind of there from the beginning to the end. We want to make sure that we're incorporating the community every step of the way. We're going to talk about brownfield inventories, a little bit about site planning and technical assistance, and then provide some DC-specific resources. And we want to remind you all to reach out at any time with questions, or if you're just getting started and wondering where to go next with a potential brownfield site. So, getting into the community engagement aspect of things, this is one of the most crucial aspects of redevelopment. You want to find engagement methods that can fit your community. So tailor them to how you best think that they can fit. That can be administering a questionnaire, that can be in paper form or online, that can be in the form of establishing focus groups, such as interviewing key constituents or stakeholders, facilitating public information gatherings or planning workshops or 1 to 3 day design work sessions, forming action-oriented working groups to address some of those sites, or stakeholder groups for transition from planning to implementation of a project. How do we make sure that our stakeholders are interested in feeling comfortable? We don't want to go to a community and make sure that we're having a session where we're just lecturing the community and there's not any type of active engagement. So you want to make sure that you're encouraging participation from your stakeholders. Don't just have them there, but allow them to provide input. Make sure that your venue is accessible. You have a good meeting time. So that's thinking about not scheduling things during working hours where people are going to have to worry about taking PTO or getting off of work to attend those events. Having childcare, if that is accessible in an area that you live, or having activities in the room or in an adjacent room for children to work on while the session is ongoing, or having translation materials available as well. It can also include site visits if those are feasible and safe and you're not trespassing on any of those properties or there's not the risk of anyone getting hurt. We can make it interactive by allowing community members and stakeholders to provide input in a variety of ways. That can include note cards, maps, and questionnaires. We really just want to make sure that we're not lecturing those folks and that we're giving them an active space to provide their input and their opinions on the process. So, looking at brownfield inventories, why inventory brownfield sites? There is no comprehensive list of brownfields in the United States, only EPA estimates. The most recent estimate from the EPA that we have, which is kind of dated at this point, is about 450,000 brownfield sites across the United States. So creating an inventory helps you to know what you have on hand in your community. And we're calling these assets because they are assets for redevelopment, often because of their central location and the benefits that they can provide through redevelopment. So we want to also create a target area by building interest and engagement around those sites targeted for redevelopment and work toward prioritizing those sites based on community interests and redevelopment goals that you have. And expanding funding opportunities. Having that inventoried list of properties expands the potential for funding, and a site prioritization demonstrates having a vision for some of those sites. Some funding sources, including EPA grants, require specific target areas and redevelopment goals. So segueing off of the generals about brownfield inventory, something that Mid-Atlantic Tab can help you with is what we call our Brownfield Inventory Support Program, abbreviated to ISP. These inventories help prepare communities to pursue brownfield projects, apply for EPA assessment and cleanup funds, and to ultimately reduce threats to health and welfare of sensitive populations while returning those contaminated properties to a productive reuse. So what is the program? The program is a community-led inventory process. We will never go to the community by ourselves or independently. We only come to the community when we are asked. We include commercial and industrial properties only in that inventory process, and we use existing interactive community mapping tools or resources. We use Regrid in our office because of its user friendliness, and we teach the community how to use that, how to map, and help you create a living inventory of those properties in your community. It is not a grant program or direct funding source, so we don't have any funds. This is more so just to prepare you for creating that inventory and preparing to prioritize some of those properties to eventually apply for funds to target some of those sites. However, all of the services that we provide, including the inventory support program, are free and no cost to the communities that we serve. Creating an inventory does not mean that immediate action is required on those sites. We're here to help communities build capacity, and that starts with inventory. So recapping that, inventorying your brownfields is just the first step. It doesn't have to mean that site is imminent or that you have to have a plan for redevelopment ready to go. This is the first step for starting to address some of those properties in your community. And having that prepared list helps you dig a bit deeper and to think about which sites you want to try to target first. Once you begin targeting those sites, it's time to start thinking about environmental site assessments, planning, and cleanup. And we want to provide that reminder again that we are always here to help if you need site-specific assistance or have any questions navigating the process. And I'm going to turn it over to Katie now.
Thanks, Seth. I'm Katie C. here. I am a planner by trade, so that's the experience I have here with community planning for cities and counties. So I would love to talk to you a little bit about how you can think about that with brownfields. Next slide, please. So we want to remind you that when you start to identify brownfield sites, that you can take those sites with their location and the information you know and start to plug them into community plans that you already have. If you're looking to apply for funding, whether that's through the EPA with the brownfield grants or some additional funding, and you need to verify why the proposed reuse plan you have for a site would be valid in that particular area or for these particular reasons, then you can point back to plans that you have in your community. And they can be for your specific city, or it can be countywide or region-wide. You want to make sure that you're thinking about those. Those help strengthen your applications, but also it just helps to bounce back to community engagement, as Seth talked about earlier. So if the community went through that process for a particular location and an area with a plan, you know that the community supports some of the work again for some of these sites when you have a brownfield. And as Seth also said, we believe this all starts with actually creating your brownfield inventory, because when you do actually go through the process to prepare a brownfield inventory, that lets you know where the sites are, if they are in close proximity to one another, if it could result in the redevelopment of a block, or maybe you start to look at a redevelopment corridor. So you can start to see again how some tools that you already have available in the form of plans, again, can go into strengthening the application for the reuse vision for your area. Next slide, please. So if you go to this website that's linked in the bottom of the slide, you can see some EPA eligible planning activities. So if you look to apply for an EPA Brownfield Assessment Grant, it gives you the opportunity, in addition to environmental site assessments, to actually go through some plans to help you actually get those brownfield sites in a particular area ready to go through the cleanup process, or maybe if cleanup is nominal, get ready for the actual reuse process. And some of the examples of plans that you will find on that website includes brownfields area-wide planning, site reuse assessment, community health assessment. Want to point out that that's something that we have folks on our team here at West Virginia University through TAB. They would love to help you with that if that's something that would be helpful to learn how, again, you can use funding like that to be able to apply for to actually be able to prepare a community health assessment. You can also look at the evaluation of market viability. So if you've gone through this process and you want to know if the idea that your community has in mind would actually be viable for this particular area with the market, again, this tool available here is something that you could use the funding for, either with the Brownfield Assessment Grant or the targeted brownfield assessment that's also available through the EPA. Next slide, please. So here are, we're just going to talk a little bit about technical assistance. And so again, I just mentioned EPA Brownfield Assessment Grants. So here we're just going to touch on the various funding opportunities that are available to you and your community. So again, we're talking about the EPA Brownfield Assessment Grant. With that funding, it allows you to be able to complete environmental site assessments. That would be phase 1, which is the desk research. That's looking into the history of the property, what was the property previously used for, what might be some known contaminants on the site, and it looks at historical documents such as sandborne maps. It also allows you to plan for the cleanup and redevelopment of those properties. An EPA cleanup grant then allows you to focus on actually cleaning up a brownfield site. So a lot of times you're going to find you may have applied for an assessment grant. And I also want to say that an assessment grant will generally cover many sites. So you're able to accomplish a lot of phase 1 and phase 2 environmental site assessments. Timeout. I just realized I didn't elaborate on what a phase 2 is. So phase 2, now that you knew about phase 1, again, was the desk work. Phase 2 would be if you found in that phase 1 that there could be some contamination based on the previous research and history done. Phase 2 would actually consist of taking some samples on that site to determine the possible extent of that. And that information helps feed into what you need to know for a cleanup grant. And so again, when it comes to a cleanup grant, you're generally looking to apply for 1 site, maybe 2, kind of depending on how much you think that the estimated cost of the cleanup would be. Whereas the assessment grants, you are generally able to apply that funding to several phase 1s and phase 2s, and then also, again, the planning activities that were referenced in the previous slide. So those 2 are grants, environmental or the EPA assessment and cleanup grants. Those are administered by you. You apply for them, you receive them, and then you are responsible for administering the grants. Another type of assistance that's available is called targeted brownfield assessment, and that's available through the EPA. And that is assessment for a specific project and property within your community. That is for phase 1 and phase 2 environmental site assessments. The nice thing about this one is that the EPA would manage the work. So they have contractors who the EPA is communicating with. They always keep you informed throughout the process. But again, you don't have to do all that paperwork. So that's a very nice thing. I think it currently there's probably a bit of a wait time. So, if that was something that you were interested in, we'd definitely be happy to put you in touch with the EPA project officer to get a sense of where they are in the timing of that. Next slide, please. All right, handing it over to Haley.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, so we're just going to go through several different DC resources listed here. And just as a note, anything that you see that is underlined is a clickable link, and these slides will be sent out afterwards. So all of this will be made completely accessible to you. But just going through the list, we have the vacant structure and lot list, which we did get a snapshot of earlier when Seth was talking about brownfield inventory, if you recall that slide. We have the DC project pipeline database, the community development corporations list, office to anything program, a map of current and remediated VCP sites, which is voluntary cleanup program sites, and a list of municipal projects. So again, please explore this if you have any questions as you're looking when it comes to interpreting information or how you can best apply it and make it work for you. As we've said throughout this presentation, do not hesitate to reach out to us with those questions. Next slide, please. And while we're going through some upcoming events that our organization will be involved with and some of us will be going to and that we highly encourage you all to attend, I'm going to send out a poll. It is just a couple questions, and we would greatly appreciate any answers you can provide us there. But as you're answering that, just going through some upcoming events. April 24th, we have the Virginia Brownfield Symposium. This gathers professionals in the space, community members, stakeholders. Will be in Hopewell, Virginia this year, and it is a one-day event. Tickets are going fast as well, so if you're at all interested, again, we have a registration link that is off to the side. The national conference this year will be August 5th through 8th. It's going to be in Chicago, same kind of deal, just on a much broader scale. And then we have the West Virginia Brownfields Conference, which will be September 9th to 11th in Morgantown, West Virginia, which is not far from DC, just putting that out there. And we'd love to see anyone who's able to attend join us. I don't think registration is quite open for that yet, but it should be soon. And as is linked to the side, you can read a little bit more about that and what to expect. And if you wanted to submit any session ideas, we have that open until March 21st. We also accept posters, and there's some other opportunities for engagement there as well. Off to the side, we do have the DC 2050 comprehensive plan linked. So just reading through that, it's, residents are encouraged to visit this website to take the DC 2050 vision survey and to participate in upcoming public meetings. So just a great opportunity for you all invested in the area. You might want to know more about that and get to attend these meetings. And they are at accessible times for a, like a typical work day as well. So that's really great to see. But yeah, that's what we've got going on and some stuff in your area as well. So we'll go ahead and hop over to the next slide. And that is what we have for this presentation. Again, I've spoken today, you've heard from Katie, Seth, and Carrie. You can reach any of us in the bottom center of that slide there. We have our general email. You can email us personally. If you're not sure who to reach out to, we recommend the general email, but either way, we will get you connected with who will be best able to help you. And don't forget to check out our link tree as well, which has links to all of our social media, so you can stay in touch with us and see about other opportunities and webinars like this one. And we also have a newsletter. But yeah, at this time, if anyone has any questions, we would love to hear from you. As Carrie said earlier, you can unmute and ask your question aloud. We want this to be discussion-based and really open. So feel free to type your questions and we'll read them, or to go ahead and unmute and let us know if there's anyone in particular you want to direct your question towards.
While you're thinking of your question, I'll just tell you that our goal here was just to sort of introduce Brownfields, to introduce ourselves to you, and to let you know that we are here. Often we find that folks have a project that may have a Brownfield component and they just didn't know. So you don't if you want to leave this and you're inspired and you're going to go find a brownfield you didn't know about to redevelop, we love that. But you may also have heard like, oh, I have an old school or I have an old dry cleaners in my community and I didn't know I needed to talk to somebody about it. And you can absolutely call us about those as well. This is an EPA funded program. It's not a part of the enforcement part of EPA. So if you call us, especially because we're not EPA, but even if you call the EPA Brownfield program, it doesn't automatically set off anything. There's not suddenly going to be regulators who are asking a bunch of questions. Doing a phase 1 doesn't automatically make anything happen. It just gets you more information. And so if you're not sure where to start, you absolutely should start with us. And we're happy to answer what we can or point you in the direction of things that we can't. We don't often say, no, that's not us. We never say, no, that's not us without following it up with, but I know somebody who you can talk to, or I'll find someone you can talk to.